Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2019 Algonquin Regional High School Poetry Out Loud School-Wide Competition Finals. Welcome. Thank you guys for coming here. For those of you who don't know who I am Mr. Zarnecki.
I'm Ms. France.
And we are co-running this beast today for you. So, yes.
Do you want to tell them where the exits are?
Oh, right, the exits, yes. Safety. In case of an emergency, a fire drill or something of that nature, there are exits to the back and exits to the side, just in case there is a bell that is rung that indicates that we must leave. Find the nearest one and exit in an orderly fashion.
Hi. So this is my first year helping out with Poetry Out Loud. So as I was kind of getting involved in this really awesome event, I was thinking about what is the purpose of memorizing poetry? Why am I doing this with my class? Why do we run this event? What is accomplished by that? And being an English teacher, I found an answer that I liked in a poem that I like very much. So this poem is by a man named William Matthews, and in the poem, so he's addressing a class that has just read one of his poems, and one of the students asks him why he writes poems that make his head hurt, and if he wants that. And the poet responds. So the specific line is, "Why do you write poems that make my head hurt when I try to understand them?" And the poet responds, "I try to write as well as I can what it feels like to be human. I try to say what I don't know how to say, but of course I can't get much of it down at all. I don't want my poems to be hard unless the truth is, if there is a truth." And that, I think, is why we're here today, to try to say what we don't know how to say and write what it is to be human and express that to each other as best as we can.
So I have been doing this event for 7 years now, and I've seen the effect that memorization and recitation can have on a person. And when you memorize a poem, you make it your own, you own it, it belongs to you. And this year, nearly 400 people took ownership of their poems during their classroom Poetry Out Loud competitions, many of which are in the crowd today. The winners then moved on to an impressive semifinal round with the top 8 making it to today's finals. A round of applause for them for making it this far. At the conclusion of today's program, we will announce today's first place winner, who will represent Algonquin on Saturday, March the 2nd, in the regional semifinals, with one state champion going on to compete for glory and a bit of scholarship money at the national finals in Washington, D.C. this spring. Now, to help us determine this year's winners, we have a distinguished group of cross-disciplinary judges, and I'd like to introduce them to you. So our first judge is no stranger to public speaking. She is the educator of elocution, the doctor of discourse, one Miss Katie Salt. A round of applause, please. Yes. Our next judge is a true dual threat, a lover of both theater and microscope stages, because microscopes, okay, right, all right. Biology teacher, Mr. Brian Kelly. You know a joke is good when the person telling it has to, explain it. Our next judge we brought on because in the English department we call him the Hammer. Because he's known to come down hard on a fool. I'm just kidding. He's actually really, really kind and fair. English teacher, Mr. Alex Silva. I hope that nickname sticks. Our final judge is a man who can recite the Bill of Rights, the judicious Mr. Brian Kellett. On accuracy, we have the ever watchful eye of one Miss Emily Philbin. Yes, absolutely, please. We can't do it without her. And finally, this is how much I love alliteration. Finally, the Sultana of the spreadsheet. Lindsay Copins will calculate our scores and tabulate for us. Thank you, Miss Copins. Okay. Each judge will be evaluating our performers on physical presence, voice and articulation, dramatization, and evidence of understanding. Finally, we have a very special addition to our program today. The Slam Poetry Club will perform an original work during the halfway point of our show. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that it is ever important to be silent while the competitors are at the microphone. And please be sure to celebrate each poem with a warm round of applause at the conclusion of the recitation. So, with no further delay, I'd like to invite Isabelle Shakespeare to the stage.
Slant by Suji Kwok Kim. If the angle of an eye is all, the slant of hope, the slant of dreaming, according to each life, what is the light of the city? Light of Lady Liberty, possessor of the most famous armpit in the world. Light of the lovers on Chinese soap operas, throwing barbecued ducks at each other, with that live it up while you're young, woo me kind of love. Light of the old men sitting on crates outside Giga shops, selling dried seahorses and plastic temples of heaven. Light of the yin and yang junk palace. Light of the Golden Phoenix hair salon. Light of Wiggo-Ramas. Light of the suntanners in Central Park, turning over like rotisserie chickens, sizzling on a spit. Light of the pluck you and gone wings fried chicken shops. The parking meter leaners, the glamazons, the oglers wearing fern-wilting quantities of cologne, strutting, trash-talking, glorious. The immigrants, the refugees, the peddlers, stockbrokers and janitors, stenographers and cooks, all of us making and unmaking ourselves, hurrying forwards towards who will become. One way only, one life only, free in time but not from it. Here in the city, the living make together, and make and unmake over and over. Quick, quick, as heaven of it, of every mortal relation. Feeling that is fleeing, for what would the heart be without a heaven to set it on? I can't help thinking no word will ever be as full of life as this world. I can't help think of thanks.
Up next is Rhody Dina.
El Olvido by Judith Ortiz. It is a dangerous thing to forget the climate of your birthplace, to choke out the voices of your dead relatives when in dreams they call you by your secret name. Dangerous to spurn the clothes you were born to wear for the sake of fashion. Dangerous to use weapons and sharp instruments you're not familiar with. Dangerous to disdain the plaster saints before which your mother kneels, praying with embarrassing favor that you, surviving the place you have chosen to live, a bare, cold room with no pictures on the walls, a forgetting place where she fears you will die of loneliness and exposure. Jesus, Maria, and Jose, she says, el olvido, it is a dangerous thing. Thank you.
Next to the stage, Sarah Bush.
Nature that washed her hands in milk by Sir Walter Raleigh. Nature that washed her hands in milk and had forgot to dry them, instead of earth, took snow and silk at love's request to try them. If she, a mistress, could compose to please love's fancy out of those, her eyes, he would, should be of light. of violet breath and lips of jelly. Her hair not black nor over bright, and of the softest down her belly. As for her inside, he'd have it, only of wantonness and wit. At love's entreaty, such a one nature made, but with her beauty she hath framed a heart of stone, so as love, by ill destiny, must die for her whom nature gave him, because her darling would not save him. But time, which nature doth despise, and rudely gives her love the lie, makes hope a fool and sorrow wise. His hands do neither wash nor dry. His hands do neither wash nor dry, but being made of steel and rust, turn snow and silk and milk to dust. Yea, time doth dull each timely wit, and dries all wantonness with it. O cruel time, which takes in trust our youth, our joys, and all we have, and pays us but with age and dust, who in the dark and silent grave, when we have wandered all our ways, shuts up the story of our days.
Next is Ruchi Thora.
Ways of Talking by Ha-Jin. We used to like talking about grief. Our journals and our letters were packed with losses, complaints, and sorrows, even when there was no grief. We couldn't stop lamenting as though longing for the charm of a distressed face. Then we couldn't help expressing grief. So many things descended without warning. Labor wasted, loves lost, houses gone, marriages broken, friends estranged, ambition worn away by immediate needs, words lined up in our throat for a good whining. Grief seemed like an endless river, the only immortal flow of life. After losing a land and giving up a tongue, we stopped talking about grief. Smiles began to brighten our faces. We laugh a lot at our own mess. Things become beautiful. Even hailstones in the strawberry fields.
Please welcome to the mic, Joe Zang.
Dream Song 14 by John Berryman. Life, friends, is boring. We must not say so. After all, the sky flashes, the great sea yearns. We ourselves flash and yearn. And moreover, my mother told me as a boy, repeatedly, ever to confess you're bored means you have no inner resources. I conclude now, I have no inner resources because I am heavy bored. Peoples bore me. Literature bores me, especially great literature. Henry bores me with his plights and gripes as bad as Achilles, who loves people, and valiant art, which bores me. And the tranquil hills and gin look like a drag. And somehow, a dog has taken itself and its tail considerably away into mountains or sea or sky, leaving behind me. Wag.
Next is Jenna Cream.
Learning to Abandon the World by Linda Posten. I am learning to abandon the world before it can abandon me. Already I have given up the moon and snow, closing my shades against the claims of white. And the world has taken my father, my friends. I have given up melodic lines of hills, moving to a flat, tuneless landscape. And every night, I give my body up limb by limb, working upwards across bone towards the heart. But morning comes with small reprieves of coffee and birdsong. A tree outside the window, which was simply shadow moments ago, takes back its branches, twig by leafy twig. And as I take my body back, the sun lays its warm muzzle on my lap, as if to make amends.
Our next competitor, Miranda Slingluff.
Siblings by Patricia Smith. Arlene learned to dance backwards in heels that were too high. Brett prayed for a shaggy mustache made of mud and hair. Cindy just couldn't keep her windy legs together. Dennis never learned how to swim. Emily whispered her gusts into 1,000 skins. Franklin, far-sighted and anxious, bumbled villages. Gert spat her matronly name against a city's flat face. Harvey hurled a wailing child high. Irene, the baby girl, threw pounding tantrums. Jose liked the whip sound of slapping. Lee just craved the whip. Maria's thunderskirts flew high when she danced. Nate was mannered and practical. He stormed precisely. Ophelia nibbled weirdly on the tips of depressions. Philippe slept too late, flailing on a wronged ocean. Rita was a vicious flirt. She woke Philippe with her rumors. Stan was born business, a gobbler of steel. Tammy crooned country, getting the words all wrong. Vince died before anyone could remember his name. Wilma opened her maw wide, flashing rot. None of them talked about Katrina. She was their odd sister, the blood dazzler.
The final competitor before the end of our first half is Caroline Raps.
Quite Frankly by Mark Halliday. They got old. They got old and died. But first, they composed plangent depictions of how much they lost and how much cared about losing. Meantime, their hair got thin and more thin as their shoulders went slumpy. Okay, but not before the photo albums got arranged by them. Arranged with a niftiness. Not just 2 or 3, but 18 photo albums. Yes, 18 eventually. 18 albums proving the beauty of them and not someone else. Them and their relations and friends. Incontrovertible. Playing croquet in that Bloomington yard. Floating on those comic inflatables at Dow Lake. Giggling at the Dairy Queen. Waltzing at the wedding. Building Lego palaces on the porch. holding the baby beside the rental truck, leaning on the Hemingway statue at Pamplona, discussing the eternity of art in that Sardinian restaurant. Yes, and so quite frankly, at the end of the day, they got old and died, sure, but quite frankly, how much does that matter in view of the 18 photo albums, big ones, 13 inches by 12 inches each, full of such undeniable beauty?
All right, guys, that was the first half of the show. Can we get a round of applause for our 8 competitors? That was stellar. So typically, we have a bit of downtime, but we're very lucky to have an extremely special presentation from our Slam Poetry Club, which I believe started for the first time this year. So please welcome to the stage Haley Rabarchek, Catherine Zeta, and Sarah Saeed.
This poem is called The Voices in My Head. 52?
Seriously? You stayed up all night studying just to fail.
Don't worry about it. Just breathe. Inhale, exhale.
Oxygen? But clearly, chemistry isn't in your fate. College doesn't want kids who don't know acetate from oxalate.
But one test isn't everything. Plus, your other grades are fine.
Leave me alone. Don't pester me. Let me clear my mind.
Pester? You'd be nothing without me. Without me here, you'd be a worthless nobody. I'm the one who holds high expectations. I'm the one who knows your worth and limitations.
Your worth is not a number.
Why bother?
I've wasted countless sleepless nights studying, pretending to be capable.
It's shameful. Empty, unkept promises that you won't disappoint this time.
Don't let the negativity faze you. Open your eyes. One low grade is not a crime.
It's not negativity. It's a fact you have to face, that with every failure comes disgrace, yet you continue to ignore the advice I repeat to you. Maybe that's why a test will always defeat you.
But can't you see that the hours you've invested are immortalized?
That my efforts have never gone unnoticed. My toil is a testament, each scribble a beacon.
Of hope, evidence that you can do better. You will beat the burden that inhabits the test.
Oh, give it a rest with the theatrics, why don't you? That grade is immortalized too. The F, the failure, the 52, it's all anyone will see. Listen to me. You can count the tears you've shed. You can study until you're dead, but the effort doesn't matter because you've lost. You're set up to fail. Positivity will tell you to inhale or exhale, but who cares about that? You're so invested in the future. What if the future doesn't want you?
You're right. I know my effort's inconsequential. What's the point when I've already lost my potential?
Good question.
Works to no avail when I'll always fall behind, confined in this state of mind.
If I may interject, each tear-dampened page, each caffeine-driven night means you're breaking out of a cage. You're engaged in your improvement. And what matters is you gave it your all. Your downfall will be listening to that aching voice that tells you this is the end. It's not. Put it into perspective. 100 on one test wouldn't make you, and even a 0's unlikely to break you. You're inclined to improve, and that's what separates you from failure.
Inclined to improve?
Inclinations don't matter. Don't flatter yourself.
Yes, they do. You know it's true. Success is an uphill climb. The work to get there is always worth the time. And one test just isn't worth this kind of doubt. Things always have a way of working out.
Maybe you're right. Numbers truly don't equate with success, nor my ability to impress.
What defines you in this life is not how much you've succeeded. It's how you take your failures in stride. You've exceeded your time for self-doubt. Now get out and show yourself all that you're capable of. Look, you have so many A's ahead of you, but remember, those are just letters too.
You're right. They're just letters, just marks on the page, marks that don't merit this kind of rage, nor justification for what it's worth. You try to make me believe it's life or death, but you're wasting your breath. I realize that now. Get out of my mind. I don't need you. I can survive a 52.
So So before we begin, can we please get another round of applause for the Slam Poetry Club? That was insane. So the Slam Poetry Club, as we had mentioned before, is in its first year. They meet just about every Thursday in H213, and you could follow them on Instagram, ARHS dot, is that where the dot comes in? .slam poetry. All right, so round 2 is about to get started, and please give a warm welcome to Isabelle Shakespeare.
I Carry Your Heart With Me, I Carry It In, by E. Cummings. I carry your heart with me, I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful, you are my world, my true. And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root and the bud of the bud and the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than soul can hope and mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart.
Our next competitor is Sarah Bush.
Quite Frankly, by Mark Halliday. They got old. They got old and died. But first, they composed plangent depictions of how much they lost and how much cared about losing. Meantime, their hair got thin, and more thin as their shoulders went slumpy. Okay, but not before the photo albums got arranged by them. Arranged with a niftiness. Not just 2 or 3, but 18 photo albums. Yes, 18 eventually. 18 albums proving the beauty of them and not someone else. Them and their relations and friends. Incontrovertible. Playing croquet in that Bloomington yard. Floating on those comic inflatables at Dow Lake. Giggling at the Dairy Queen, waltzing at the wedding. Building a Lego palace on the porch. Holding the baby beside the rental truck. Leaning on the Hemingway statue at Pamplona. Discussing the eternity of art in that Sardinian restaurant. Yes, and so, quite frankly, at the end of the day, they got old and died. Okay, sure. But quite frankly, how much does that matter in view of the 18 photo albums, big ones, 13 inches by 12 inches each, full of such undeniable beauty?
Please welcome to the stage, Ruchi Thora.
The Work of Happiness by May Sarton. I thought of happiness, how it's woven in the silence of the empty house each day, and how it's not sudden and it's not given, but is creation itself. Like the growth of a tree, no one has seen it happen. But inside the bark, another circle is growing in the expanding ring. No one has heard the roots go deeper in the dark. But the tree is lifted by this inward work, and its plumes shine and its leaves are glittering. So happiness is woven in the peace of ours and strikes its roots deep in the house alone, the old chest in the corner, cool waxed floors, white curtains, softly and continually blown as the free air moves quietly about the room. A shelf of books, a table, the whitewashed walls. These are the dear familiar gods of home. And here, work of faith can best be done. The growing trees, green and musical. For what is happiness but growth in peace? The timeless sense of time when furniture has stood a lifespan in a single place. And as the air moves, the old dreams stir the shining leaves of present happiness. And no one has listened, heard, or thought of a mind. But where people have lived in inwardness, the air is charged with blessing and does bless. The windows look out on the mountains, and the walls are kind.
Next up is Joe Zang.
Onions by William Matthews. How easily happiness begins by dicing onions. A lump of sweet butter slithers and swirls across the floor of the sauté pan, especially if its errant path crosses a tiny slick of olive oil. Then a tumble of onions. This could mean soup or risotto or chutney, from the Sanskrit chutney, to lick. Slowly, the onions go limp, and then nacreous, and then what cookbooks call clear. Though, if they were eyes, you could see clearly the cataracts in them. It's true. It can make you weep to peel them, to unfurl and to tease from the taut ball first, the brittle, caramel-colored and decrepit, papery outside layer. The least recent, the reticent onion wrapped around its growing body. For there's nothing to an onion but skin. And it's true. You can go on weeping as you go on in, through the moist middle skins, the sweetest and thickest. And you can go on into the core, to the bud-like, acrid, fibrous skins densely clustered there, stalky and incomplete. And these are the most pungent. Like the nuggets of nightmare and rage and murmury animal comfort that infant humans secrete, this is the best domestic perfume. You sit down to eat with a rumor of onions still on your twice-washed hands, and lift to your mouth a hint of a story about loam and usual endurance. It's there when you clean up and rinse the wine glasses and make a joke. And you leave the minutest whiff of it on the light switch later when you climb the stairs.
All right, friends, we're down to our final three. I just want to remind you to remain silent as the performers take the stage. We don't want any distractions for our last three. So with that, please give a warm welcome to Jenna Cream.
A Song in the Front Yard by Gwendolyn Brooks. I've stayed in the front yard all my life. I want to peek at the back, where it's rough and untended and hungry weed grows, a girl gets sick of a rose. I want to go in the backyard now, and maybe down the alley to where the charity children play. I want a good time today. They do some wonderful things. They have some wonderful fun. My mother sneers. But I say it's fine. How they don't have to go in at 8:45. My mother, she tells me that Johnny May will grow up to be a bad woman. That George will be taken to jail soon or late. On account of last winter, he sold our back gate. But I say it's fine, honest. I do. And I'd like to be a bad woman too. And wear the brave stockings of night black lace and strut down the streets with paint on my face.
All right, our second to last poem of the day is Miranda Slingluff.
In by Andrew Hudgens. When we first heard from blocks away the fog truck's blustery roar, we dropped our toys, leapt from our meals, and scrambled out the door. Into an evening briefly fuzzy, we yearned to be transformed, translated past confining flesh to disembodied spirit. We swarmed in thick smoke, taking human form before we blurred again, turned vague and then invisible. In temporary heaven, freed of bodies by the fog, we laughed, we sang, we shouted. We were our voices, nothing else. Voice was all we wanted. The white clouds tumbled down our streets, pursued by spellbound children who chased the most distorting clouds, ecstatic in the poison.
Our last recitation of the day goes to Caroline Raps.
In Love, His Grammar Grew by Stephen Dunn. In love, his grammar grew rich with intensifiers, and adverbs fell madly from the sky like pheasants for the peasantry. And he, as sated as they were, lulled under shade trees until roused by moonlight, and the beautiful fraternal twins, and but. Oh, that was when he knew he couldn't resist a conjunction of any kind. One said accumulate. The other was a doubter who loved the wind and the mind that cleans up after it. For love, he wanted to break all the rules, light a candle behind a sentence named Sheila, always running on and wishing to be stopped by the hard button of a period. Sometimes, in desperation, he'd look toward a mannequin or a window dresser with a penchant for parsing, but mostly, he wanted you, Sheila, and the words and adjectives that could precede and change you. Bluesy, fly by night, queen of all that is and might be.
All right, friends, that concludes our Poetry Out Loud competition. When next you see my and Miss France's faces, we will have our winner. So just hang tight.
Keep going, man.
All right. So first off, I want to thank you guys for being an amazing audience. And let's give our competitors one more round of applause, please. So this competition doesn't happen on its own. There are a number of people to thank quickly. If I leave anybody out, I'm sorry. To all of our judges, thank you for being a part of it. Mr. Silver, Mr. Kelly, Miss Salt, Mr. Kellett, Miss Philbin, and Miss Copens. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Harbinger for bearing witness to this event. Awesome, thank you. Thank you to Zach in the back for doing the lights and sound. Anybody there who's helping you out with that. Thank you to Cable Access for filming. Thank you to Miss Waters, Miss Collins, and Mr. Vincent for allowing us to use this space. And I think that's about everybody I could think of at this point. But the moment you all have been waiting for, the person that will be moving on, as well as the top three, moving on to the regional semifinals, Miss France is in possession of, so please.
So in third place.
What'd I do? Oh, Miss France wins. She wins.
Oh, yeah. In third place, we have Sarah Bush. In second place is Miranda Slingluff. And first place going on to, is it the state finals?
Semis.
State semifinals. Can I get a drum roll, please? Thank you. Joe Zang.
What time is it? 45. 45, all right. Well, you stay and wait till the bell rings. All right, friends, so that concludes our program. Thank you for being an amazing audience. You have a few minutes just to hang. If you want to congratulate the competitors on your own, you may, but remain here until the bell rings. We'll see you next year.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Good job, guys.